Okay, we're going to start with the minor pentatonic shapes here. And as I mentioned, we have five patterns that span the entire fretboard. And this is considered by most people the first position or first uh, pentatonic box pattern. So there's a couple things to note here. This is the sixth string or E string. These are the names of the strings down to the smallest string or the first string. And also the red dots designate the tonal center. So in this case we're starting on the 5th fret, so that is A. So we're starting here in A minor pentatonics. So this is the first position. You can see that there are 3 A notes here, here, and here, designating the root or the tonal center for this song or for the key, and certainly for the patterns here. So as we move on to the second position, so you can pause the video at any time during these shapes and memorize them or work on them as well, okay? So that is the first position. Moving into the second position, you'll notice a couple things. Let me back that up. So all the notes on the right side of this pattern will be established the notes, as you'll see here, for the second position. These are all the same notes, so they're the right notes on the first pattern and the left set of notes for the second pattern. So that's how all these shapes plug in, and you'll see that in every single shape. So the sort of the front end of the second pattern plugs into the back end of the first pattern, if you will. And again, I've highlighted where the A notes or the root is in this particular position, since we started on A and the 5th fret on the 6th string. And here you'll see the third position pentatonic. Once again, these notes plug in perfectly to the back side of the second position. So this is the third position pentatonic, and we move on to the fourth position. Likewise, you will see how they plug and fit together. So you should memorize these one at a time and learn each position individually, and then begin to see, and you will as you practice them, see how they plug in, and in fact they're the same overlapping notes position by position. And finally up here for the fifth position, again plugs in all the same notes right here as the first position. So we could continue on down the fretboard. This is the 12th fret here, and this is 15 obviously, and it continues on down. So this position actually fits on down here at the further end of the neck, and it keeps going until you run out of the neck. So those are the 5 positions. Another thing that I did is, now a lot of times people will show you all these notes and they'll be the same color. So now that they're all on the fretboard together in all these different colors, they don't really make a lot of sense. That's why I showed them to you one at a time, and also how they plug in. But as I pulled them off into the white space here, I thought this was interesting, so I left it in here. Is that, again, with no strings and no frets, I show you the first position, and you get a nice visual feel for the pattern, which is where you want to get to. You don't want to just learn the patterns, you want to actually visualize it, and as you visualize it, you'll be able to see it easier on the fretboard and use it accordingly. And also, with all these different colored notes, you can see the above pattern right here where this fits in the context of all the other notes. Likewise, this is the second position. It gives you a nice visual of the layout of that position. Here is the third, and again you can pause the video and study these or practice these one at a time. There's the fourth position. Also in the right, in the info section, I've provided 2 links, one to the pentatonic shape, so if you want to go to that link and print it out, if you're not always in front of your computer, you can print out the shapes and study them. But I think I would start on the video here first, as this is sort of a unique way to present this material, but I provide a printed copy for your convenience. And then finally the fifth position, pulled off into the white space here, and you can see those relationships. So there's no way getting around just memorizing these shapes. You have to memorize them one at a time. Once you've memorized 5, you should play them to a metronome or put on an A minor backing track and practice them over a backing track so you begin to feel for where the notes are and what notes sound good where. But as you begin to learn, once you've learned all 5 patterns and you have those memorized for one key, in this case A minor, you're able to move all of these shapes up and down the neck. It just depends on where this root is or what the key of the song is that you're playing in. And I'll show you an example of how they move here. So as you can see, this has now moved from the 5th fret, which was A, to the 3rd fret, which is G. And all of the shapes just moved up the neck. Here you have 2 open strings, so it's the same shape. You would just play these 2 strings open. And so I'll go back to that. Here, again, you have all the shapes and patterns on the 5th fret. This is for A minor. If we wanted to play it in G minor, all of those shapes just move up 2 frets in this case. But you can start this note anywhere on the fretboard, anywhere on this 6th string. And so now you know these 5 patterns and they apply to all 12 keys on the fretboard. Okay? So now moving on to the modes. Similar to the pentatonics, there are 5 patterns. There's actually 7 modes, but in 2 of the patterns you get 2 modes each. So just all you have to do is learn 5 patterns. Similar to the pentatonics as well, you'll see that they all plug in together to create kind of a continuous scale across the fretboard, and they're also movable. So you can start on any note and move it up and down the fretboard, and all the patterns remain the same. Their relative position just changes. So let me put on the first scale here, which is, this is where you get 2 for 1. So we start here on Ionian, actually. In this case, that's the 8th fret, so that is C major. So the modes, the way to think about them is they are not actually scales, but they play like scales, and you think about them like scales, but they are actually just different starting points within the major scale. So in this case, we're starting with C major. And I put this table up here to help you. You can see the C major scale contains C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. So no flats or no sharps, so that's the easiest one to learn. And so there is one scale here. It's called the C major scale in Ionian. And then all these modes are just different versions of the C major scale. All the same notes. They just start on a different note in that scale. In this case, D, E, F, G, and so on. I've also labeled them by numbers here. So there's 7 notes in the major scale, and therefore 7 modes. And here's the names of those modes. What you'll also notice here too is that a capital Roman numeral here indicates a major mode, and the smaller case represents minor. So beyond the notes of the scale, just the first letter, I've also put the chords here. So C is major, and you see it capitalized. D is actually minor in the C major scale, and that's designated by a small letter here, and that is the Dorian mode. So each one of these modes have a different flavor to them, a different sound that you're trying to achieve, and 3 of them are minor: Dorian, Phrygian, and Aeolian, as you can see here. 3 of them are major: 1, 4, and 5, or in this case C, F, G, and 1 of them is diminished, which isn't really used that much, and that's Locrian. So back to the chart here. So once again, there's no other way than to just brutally memorize these patterns, and it really won't take that long, maybe a couple days, and then you can keep practicing the scales to a metronome or to a song, and you'll get better and better, and you'll begin to visualize it over the neck here, which is the goal. So this is the Ionian and Locrian. The difference here is Ionian starts on C, this note, so you would practice the C major scale starting here, going 2 octaves and ending here. I would start on the middle finger here. This is your first finger, And so if you just add this one note in both cases, you'll actually have the Locrian mode. So that's how you get 2 for 1 in this case.